What is going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for joining me. And for this video, of course, we are continuing our NHL season predictions for this upcoming season, 2021-2022. And for this video, we have a pretty interesting team to cover here, the Dallas Stars. So entering last year, the Dallas Stars were coming off a Stanley Cup Finals run where they ultimately lost in the 2020 bubble to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So because of that run, there was a lot of expectation for this team to build themselves up as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender officially. However, those expectations were not met. In fact, not even close. They didn't even make the playoffs last year. Taking a look at their stats from last season, they finished with a 23, 19, and 14 record for a total of 60 points, which was only good enough for 5th in the Central Division, in which they missed the playoffs in a division that was relatively tough. A big part of their downfall obviously was all that overtime losses with 14. That's just way too many, and they definitely left a ton of points on the board. If they won a few of those overtimes, they definitely would have been a playoff team in that Central Division. Now, taking a look at those team stats, kind of all over the place here. In terms of offense, they had a pretty mediocre offense with a 2.79 goals for per game, which ranked only 18th in the NHL, but yet a very good power play at 23.6%, which was top 5 in the league. But defensively, it was actually the opposite, a 2.64 goals against per game, which ranked 8th in the league, which is pretty solid, but yet a 79.1% penalty kill percentage, which only ranked 19th. Taking a look at their top 5 scorers from last season, first place being Joe Pavelski, who had a massive bounce back season, really scoring at a terrific pace here in 56 games, with 25 goals and 26 assists for 51 points. And in second is actually the rookie, Jason Robertson, who in 51 games scored 17 goals and 28 assists for 45 points. Nearly a point per game for the rookie. Very amazing rookie season he had. In third, we had Roope Hintz, who only played 41 games, but managed to score 15 goals and 28 assists for 43 points. He was over a point per game. I'm honestly pleasantly surprised with how well Roope Hintz played last year. I did not expect this type of production from him. His health was a huge concern throughout the majority of the year, and towards the end of the season, it felt like he was playing every other game. I would know this because I had him on my fantasy team. He was a real pain to have on my squad. In fourth, we had the defenseman John Klingberg, who scored 7 goals and 29 assists for 36 points in 53 games. I mean, from Klingberg, this is about what we expect from him. He always seems to be a pretty productive offensive defenseman. Then in fifth, we have Jamie Benn, who scored 11 goals and 24 assists for 35 points in 52 games. I know a lot of Stars fans are disappointed in Jamie Benn over the last few years in terms of his decline in production, but regardless, it's not like he's contributing no offense, and obviously being the captain of the team, he's very pivotal in their leadership group. And in goal, I have both the tandem of Anton Khudobin and Jake Oettinger up here just because they kind of split time, as you can see. For Anton Khudobin, who played 32 games, he had a 12, 11, and 7 record with a 2.54 goals against average and a 905 save percentage. Obviously, with Ben Bishop not being able to play this season, Khudobin kind of got the call to be sort of the starting goaltender, and all things considered, he did respectably okay, I guess. For Jake Oettinger, in 29 games, he had an 11, 8, and 7 record with a 2.36 goals against average and a 911 save percentage. Now, Oettinger did split time with Khudobin, so I guess you can say it was more of a tandem, and he wasn't really a backup. But honestly, for the kid, he had a pretty solid year. His goals against was good, 911 save percentage, decent, I guess. I definitely think Oettinger has a bright future on this team, and he's definitely going to be the starting netminder next season. So looking at this roster, I see a ton of potential and a lot of solid pieces. So honestly, this is a team that massively underachieved, in my opinion. So entering this season for the Stars, I think their expectations should be much higher, and they should do much better than they did last season. If you take a look at their offseason, it was more so quiet. I mean, they did add Ryan Suter, who was bought out by the Minnesota Wild. Still a very serviceable top 4 defenseman, and they signed him at a much cheaper cap hit. Should be a perfect fit for this Stars team. Then, of course, they also had Braden Holtby, who was bought out by the Canucks, and he's probably going to be serving as the backup goaltender this season behind Jake Oettinger. Now, Holtby's play has really fallen off over these last few years. The last couple of years in Washington, and of course last season in Vancouver, was absolutely miserable for him. I feel like in a defensive system on Dallas, where their defense is very solid and they play very tight, I feel like a lot of the pressure will be off of him, so I don't think he'll have as bad of a year as he did in years past. So the only key loss I have here for the Stars is Jamie Oleksiak, who was claimed by the Seattle Kraken. Oleksiak was actually pretty solid in a top 4 role for Dallas, but they found the replacement in Ryan Suter, so really it just cancels out for me. But overall, I think they added some pretty decent replacements, and I really do like this roster, so honestly, they should be in the race to return to the playoffs this season. So taking a look at who I think will be the top 5 scorers for the Stars next season, and honestly, this was very tough to predict because all these 5 names, I could easily see any of them being the top scorer on this team. And that would include John Klingberg because he has had pretty amazing offensive seasons in the past. Now, before I break down the top 5 here, let me address someone who I don't have in the top 5 in scoring, being Joe Pavelski. Obviously, Joe Pavelski led the team in scoring last year for the Stars, so me not even having him at the top 5 might seem a little bit bold. But for me, I just don't think he has the same type of offensive production he had this past season. I just think for a guy who's 37, going to be 38, probably not going to score at that rate. It just seems unlikely that he scores at a 70+ pace this upcoming season. Not to be that guy, but given his age, I feel like this season he will probably take a little bit of a step back. This is not to say that he will totally fall off a cliff and only produce like 25 or 30 points. I definitely think he can hit about 45 to 50, but over an 82 game season, he's not going to be at like a 70-point pace, like I said. So leading the team in scoring, I actually have Tyler Seguin scoring 30 goals and 45 assists for 75 points. Maybe I'm being a little biased based on his reputation and what he has proven over the course of his career. And although the injuries have been a concern over the last few years, I do think when healthy, he is a proven 30-goal scorer and a 70+ point player. And second, I have Rope Hintz building off the amazing year he had last season, scoring 26 goals and 42 assists for 68 points. Now, I'm not exactly sure if I see him as a over point per game guy or someone who can score 80+ points at this point of his career. In my opinion, I think he just has a little bit more to prove to convince me that he can be that guy. But at 68 points, he's still going to be providing quite a bit of offense for you. And him with Tyler Seguin down the middle, that's a pretty solid 1-2 punch. Then in third, I have the rookie Jason Robertson scoring 25 goals and 40 assists for 65 points. Now, Robertson is coming off a very good rookie season, but he is still only a second-year player. So I don't want to put too high of expectations on him, and I figured 60-65 points is pretty fair estimation for him next season. But he definitely could hit more, and he can surprise me for sure. And in fourth, I got Alexander Radulov scoring 23 goals and 35 assists for 58 points. Now Radulov only played like 11 games, but he had 12 points, so he was over a point per game. He played amazing when he was healthy, but obviously couldn't contribute much because the injuries sidelined him for the majority of the season. Now, over an 82 game pace, I feel like Radulov maybe should be expected to score a little bit more than 58 points, but I also think his age could be a factor in why it could be a little bit of a dip in production for him, being like 35, 36 years old now. But I still think he's a very solid player, and I don't expect any significant decline in him. So about 50 to 60 points, that doesn't seem unfair to me. And then in fifth, I have John Klingberg scoring 9 goals and 43 assists for 52 points. Now, typically, Klingberg is a very productive offensive defenseman. He usually hovers around the 50-point range anyway, so this is a pretty fair assessment for me. Right, so my expectations for the Stars this season, honestly, I'm very high on this team, and I think I'm going to go a little bit bold here, but I have a lot of expectations for this team. This team is just very solid on paper, and I really think they're destined for a bounce-back season, and they for sure will be in the playoffs. With that, I have them having quite a great regular season. Second in the Central Division, I'm predicting, with a 46-28 record for a total of 100 points, and they will make the playoffs. Obviously, this team is very solid defensively, and they're known for their defensive play. And with that, I feel like the goaltending will hold up. Jake Ottinger being so young and still getting better, I think he's going to be fit really well in this system. And of course, they have a lot of really solid young offensive players, so I think their scoring should improve as well. So yeah, looking at this team, I just think they have the complete package, honestly. This is a team that's re-energized, they're healthier, so I definitely think a bounce-back season is expected. Outside of Colorado being probably the consensus best team in that division, the Central is quite wide open, so I definitely can see a scenario where the Dallas Stars find quite a bit of success. All right, so that's going to wrap up this video for my season expectations for the Dallas Stars. It'd be really nice if you guys can give me your thoughts on this team and where you think they stand. Now, do you agree with me and you think that this team can really compete in the Central Division, bounce back, and have a really good season to make the playoffs? Or do you think I'm overrating this team and you don't see them as being this dominant in the regular season, or maybe even make the playoffs because the Central is pretty tough? Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Click like if you like this video, and please consider subscribing to the channel. That's going to do it. Thank you guys again, and I will talk to you in the next video. See you guys later.